through tomorrow. The facilitator would like to have the negotiations complete by the end of tomorrow. So they're going to have to move pretty fast for the rest of today and perhaps into tonight, which isn't unusual for the second week of discussions for CSW. So although they started earlier, we're back on track for a normal progress. I think I'll leave it at that, Zarin. Obviously, I've got a lot more detail, but different people will be interested in different parts of the agreed conclusions. So I think I'll just leave it at that for then a moment.
Thank you very much, Pat. And one of the things to bear in mind that all of us need to be aware of is that the work on the zero draft, which is the original document that we start working on prior to CSW, takes place in the autumn of the year before. So there are the expert groups and they do a report, and the Secretary General does a report, and then UN Women starts getting together language. And us as civil society, we have been working, for example, Susan O'Malley and others have been working on the kind of issues that we want to get into the document, and I've already shared those with UN Women, in February. And likewise in the UK, we have been working with the government to say the things that we're interested in, and I'm sure that Canada has done with their delegation and Denmark has done with theirs and so on, that it's very important that we work with our states parties way before CSW to try to get language that we are in, or issues that we're interested in. I know that Pat and I received, I think it was today, a whole bunch of ideas about text. Well, by this time on Wednesday, on the second week, it's very late. We need to be any kind of ideas on text, whether it's about our whatever our thing is, young people, old people, widows, rural women, etc., whatever are the things that we want to get into the...
Zarin, may I announce something? There are people who are trying to enter in the caucus meeting and they can't. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, well, I think that Devon is still getting people to enter. They just have to wait a bit because we're admitting as we speak.
Can I answer a question that was put in the chat by Susan, I think, about widows, and I have to say that they have not been successful in getting that in. There are a number of member states who have tried very hard, but it has not been successful as yet.
Okay, so there are a whole, we could go into a great deal of depth about the language of the agreed conclusion and which things have got into which bits. But maybe we can, hopefully people can discuss that a bit in their rooms. And if there's specific questions they have, we can share those at the when we do the feedback. Marianne, are you here yet? Marianne Asgrave? I can't see her. Okay, is there anybody else who's been watching and participating in the review theme section? Did anybody go to the interactive dialogue today or yesterday? Who would like to do a brief report on the review theme? Okay, so the review theme, as you probably all know, what happens is that there is the interactive dialogue that takes place. And as a result of the presentations put forward, actually at that session, a report is written by the chair of the session and that goes to ECOSOC. So there's not that much that we can do to influence it, apart from to influence the states parties prior to them speaking, or to try to make sure that we that we work on trying to get ourselves in to do statements. So in the UK, Marianne Hasselgrave gave the statement on behalf of the UK in the interactive dialogue today. Does anybody want to, is there anything anybody would like to update about the review theme before we go on to working methods? No, I don't think so. Okay, please, Daniela, briefly working methods before we go into rooms.
Okay, so for those who have attended CSW 59, they know what it has been changed. These decisions are impacting us tremendously, particularly now that we have no interaction whatsoever. The most important outcome for anybody to understand is that the working method is the ongoing agreed conclusion. It is very important to understand that this is a technical document. The draft 0 is what it has been proposed by the CSW, by the Commission, by the Bureau. It comes to the states. Then we give input as we are requested by our government. That becomes a huge working document. I mean, I think it was almost 100 pages this year again, just like the previous years. While this process is going on, everything that matches in terms of issues, they will be put into common paragraphs and sub-paragraphs. As they become sub-paragraphs, it becomes the paragraphs, and then there are various working stations that becomes recommendations and legal procedures and frameworks and norms. As the document is progressing, many of you have asked why there are so many numbers. There are so many numbers because all these agreed issues, they become part of one particular chapter, one particular paragraph, one particular section. As such, they are being negotiated. The agreed conclusion is into becoming an agreed conclusion based on what it has been negotiated. As we get closer to the end, to become the agreed conclusion, it will be shrinking because all these paragraphs, those numbers that they have been cumulatively stated above each paragraph or each section becomes one. So finally, in the last stage, this is the working method, which is the outcome, the agreed conclusion. The language, the working language, based on which this agreed conclusion comes to life at the end of each session, it carries through the agreed conclusion. In 2015, in the 59th session, we only had, I think, one new term, which was girls accepted. We need strategy. And we need very serious strategy because this session, we're supposed to use it as a springboard for the next one, when we will be able, because of our states, if they show good political will, to renegotiate the working methods, meaning that we will have to be present. As for now, a very small amount of us has presence in their delegations, or they get any briefing. Many don't. As such, I hope this evening we can find a common strategy to engage into renegotiating the upcoming working sessions. That's it.
Thank you. And also the resolution on methods of work includes other things like how is CSW functioning? So for example, with the 59th, with the resolution in 59, it changed, for example, the ministerial segment. In other words, the first 2 or 3 days of CSW is a time when only ministers can speak. So it either has to be the Prime Minister or the Minister for Equalities. You can't have the Foreign Minister or the Minister of Education or the Minister of Trade. It has to be either the Prime Minister, or it has to be the Minister for Women and Equalities or whatever. And the reason for that is because when you have a minister present, they have more power to make changes. One of the challenges between the missions and the government delegations is that sometimes the people who are working at the UN in the missions here in New York, say, or in Geneva, they're either much more aware of issues relating to women and girls, or they're much less aware. But in any case, there's sometimes a difference between their abilities and expertise and knowledge and the knowledge of the government who's coming. So when you get a delegation coming from government, if they're very high level, they can make decisions. Otherwise, if the minister's all at home, the missions are always having to ring them up or email them and say, okay, so this is where the negotiations got to now. What do you want us to do? What's your red lines? What's the bottom line? And so when you have ministers coming, they are powerful enough. They don't have to communicate with back home and get told what they can and can't do. They can make their own decisions. So in order to raise the kudos of CSW, it was decided to get ministers to come and make statements in the first 3 days. And that's why you've got the high level ministerial segment. That's what that's about. And that was agreed in the 59th session. The other change was to have more interaction. So instead of having each states party making a statement and saying how wonderful they are, and often the statement they make doesn't really resonate with people from that country because they think the statement the country is making is way away from their lived reality. The idea was that states parties should make different kinds of statements. They should make a statement that showed the gaps and the challenges as well as their achievements. That was another thing that came up in CSW 59. And another thing was this idea of the interactive dialogues, that there should be some kind of way of having the panel and they would have discussions and there'd be questions and so forth. Now, that's not actually happened. You do have time for discussion from the states parties, but it's still a statement. Now, the chair says, please don't make a statement, please make a comment or ask a question. But you sit in there and there's like 2 questions and the rest are statements. But these are the attempts to change CSW, to make it more interactive and to make it more meaningful. And that's what the Working Methods Resolution is going to be looking at again next year. So we need to be thinking now about what are the things we want to see changed. Now, there's a whole bunch of states parties who are interested in positive change. The UK, Canada, Denmark, etc. The mountain states are quite a progressive group of countries, and they're interested to hear from us the kind of things we'd like to see change. We can't just say, oh, we've got shrinking civil society space. They want to know, what do you want us to do? What changes are there? What things could happen in CSW that would make it better? And that's what we need to discuss and come forward. So we're now going to split and go into rooms, and then you can discuss either something about what you've heard, agreed, priority theme, review theme, working method, civil society space, or whatever, or come up with other things that are concerning you. And we'll then do feedback afterwards. And just to say, one of the things that was raised last week was about the desire for a geographical linkage caucus. And we have contacted the other caucuses to see if we can come up with something like that. And there's a proposed date to do something tomorrow. We haven't got buy-in from the other caucuses yet. If we do, we'll let you know about it. Okay, so let's break into rooms. So
how long did you want to do them for?
Sorry?
How long did you want them to go on for?
I think, what do you think, everybody? 15 minutes, 20 minutes? Otherwise there won't be time to feedback after. What do you reckon, 20 minutes, everybody? Can you give me a thumbs up if you're okay with 20 minutes? Or, okay, cool. I think it's 20 minutes, Devon.
Cool.
And I think if we go do like about 11 rooms or 12 rooms, something like that.
Okay, cool.
Thank you very much.
All right, they're open now and everyone should get like a pop-up message to join your room.
Because we're going to go too fast, I'm not going to be able to register. Thank you.
It's okay, it's recording, thank you. Devon, could you just remind me how many rooms did we have in the end?
We had 13.
Okay, great. Okay, so that means a minute each, everybody. Room 1.
Okay, we are room 1. We kept discussing the working methods. There were two or three, I think, new who needed to understand what is the technical document, what are the working methods, how the agreed conclusion is being achieved, and why do we struggle to achieve common agreement. And the issues that were expressed with respect to the agreed conclusion was the term grandmothers, widows, and more access on transportation and internet access.
Okay, thank you. So what would be great is if everybody could put their comments in the chat, because then we can collect them and try to collate them. And so just very high level key points, room 2, please. Room 2?
I think we are room 2, and we talked about concentrating on the civil society space and how we can be more effective before CSW for next year, also using all the alliances that we have formed in the past 1 year and the fact that we are much stronger right now. We also talked about having more caucus meetings, more than the 1 meeting per month in preparation. One of them should be in preparation for the CSW for next year and zero in on the next year's theme. So we know how to work directly with our officials before the CSW of next year, using this technique of being going into breakout rooms. We talked about how to get representation from refugees and stateless women and girls, women and also women in the workforce, and also access to social services. And I will put everything in the chat, and I encourage everyone to do that so we have it documented. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And can somebody just double check I've put the right email in the chat? Okay, 3 please, room 3. Okay, I'm not sure this is going to work. Can it? Okay, Linda MacDonald, what room are you in?
Sorry, I was speaking. I didn't realize I'm
okay.
I'm sorry.
Please, Lucy, go ahead.
Yes, we continue talking about the working methods, and we also talked about the need for civil society to participate more directly and to understand the governments as to what motivates them, the financial part, because it was noted that it was we didn't. Even if the outcome document comes out, the implementation is another whole nightmare. And also the other thing that came up was the unified force for the civil society to have a unified force. I think it was mentioned by those who spoke before me. And the other part was that the outcome document is more dense. It needs to at least be simplified and so that it can be digestible, and we set our priorities clear and in a workable vision. I hope I summarized it well.
Thank you very much. Very good. I think we've got room 12 reporting already, which is great. So I'll just go to Joe first. I'm just doing people as I see them on my screen. So Joe, very brief, quick outline of key point from the room you were in. Joe Thompson.
Oh, hi. So we talked a lot about making sure that lots of different voices are represented at CSW and how we can do that through making sure that we're doing lots of research, that we're talking to lots of different groups of people, and also that we've got, you know, a varied group of women who are speaking if they're speaking on behalf of people.
Thank you very much. Linda MacDonald, from your room.
Well, we were a group of varied, I don't even know what room number we were.
6, we were in 6.
Okay. We were a varied group of newcomers, and they're a long time. So I think it was just a conversation of how the process of CSW works and understanding what an outcome document is, and concerns about lack of transparency in negotiation, that you have to be connected to delegates from the country in order to really see the negotiations, where at one time we were able to be part and witness the negotiations. So maybe Sheila or someone else wants to add to it, but it was a lot of, well, with new people, it's really overwhelming trying to figure out how to when you're on the ground, but when you're in cyberspace, trying to figure out what the outcome document is and what it's for. And that was quite a bit of our conversation.
And we wanted to be more effective by being involved earlier and more transparency about that involvement, and talked a lot about being given equal footing with the other parties. Civil society should be given equal footing with the other parties that are involved in shaping the outcome document.
Okay, but I think it also comes back to the point that was made at the beginning, is that those organizations who are working with CSW over a long period of time, who have ECOSOC accreditation, it's their responsibility to train their delegates. And we know that you have to start working in September, October. You can't leave it until March. So all of us have the responsibility to ensure that the people who we're taking with us and who we're training know this. So we need to make sure that we get that message out across really fast. Okay, so next room, let me see. Winifred, which room were you in?
I was in 5, and we also we have a spokesperson. I forget. Yes, Emily.
Please, Emily.
Yes. Thank you.
So room 5, we had representation from Netherlands, Canada, and the US. We touched on 3 areas: agenda, working methods, and how to improve the CSW. On the agenda, participants mentioned support for the Beijing platform, ending child marriage, lifting up widows, early education, educating boys as a violence prevention strategy, life skills training at a young age, educating youth about peace, human rights, online sharing, preventing violence against Indigenous women and communities, and more emphasis on action. For working methods, we talked about improving NGO engagement with CSW, need to have the ability to observe official sessions, include NGOs in delegations, and more transparency at high-level meetings. Finally, how to improve the CSW, better orientations on how to participate in delegations effectively, and having a pre-meeting on the zero draft.
Great, thank you very much. Very efficient. Okay, Leslie Wright, I'm going to go to you. Which room are you in, Leslie? You need to unmute, Leslie. Oh, I think she's just... Okay. Susan O'Malley, which room are you in? Sorry?
I don't remember my number.
Oh, right, okay. Has anybody from your room spoken yet?
Susan, you're in 7. Go for it, girl.
And you're in 7 too.
Yeah.
Do you want to speak?
Go for it, Susan.
Okay, room 7. Okay, we talked a lot about the size. We talked about of this meeting. We talked about how the power is really over with the UN, and we spend all our time having wonderful parallel events on our side. But does that really further our cause? I think we should somehow have more women ambassadors and organize them in some way. We have had meetings with women ambassadors, but a lot of them would be our allies. That every year we negotiate and every year we try to hold our own, and this must stop. And anyone else? Yeah. Oh, anyone else want to say anything? Linda, various people in my group. You're all being very quiet. The woman from Iceland.
Okay, so unless there's something else you want to say, go to the next room.
I could go.
Okay.
11.
Okay, Margaret Clark, I think you're room 9. Your name has been put forward to speak.
Right. Okay. Within our group, it was focused on the Zoom meetings that enabled so many more young people to attend, and that was the energy and a way forward. And we must encourage them more. We should start very early with the negotiations, which has been said. September at the latest to get going, so that everybody is up to speed and knows what they're going to focus on when they go to CSW. We also mentioned that the implementation was really quite a serious thing to consider, because what's the good of just coming and talking about it and doing it and getting agreed conclusion without anything being implemented? So that's something that we need to be looking at. The Istanbul Convention came up as well, because it was said that Turkey was a symbolic act, it was referred to, but we had good news that Liechtenstein has agreed and signed the Istanbul Convention. Is that right, Laura?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, that was it. Thank you.
Great, thank you ever so much. I'm going to go to Patricia Leson. What about your room? Which room are you in?
We were in room number 4, and we spent some time just getting to know each other. There were very many of us who were new to this whole situation, and we really relied on those with more experience to guide us through. It was also really wonderful to note how many young people were able to attend, people who weren't able to necessarily go to New York, but really enjoyed this virtual session. So thank you. There were many other things as well, as you can only guess.
Thank you very much indeed. If you can put them in the chat, anybody from your room. Okay, Barbara Cleary, which room are you in? Unmute, Barbara.
Sorry, I was in 3. We've done 3.
All right, okay. Yona, what about you? Which room are you in?
I can't remember the number, might have been 13, but again, our discussion was.
Has anybody in your room reported yet?
I don't think so. Bazina was in the room.
Go ahead then. What were the key points from your room?
Basically, what has already been said, Zarin, there was a lot of talk about how it has widened access, but we were reflecting the discussion before the breakout rooms that, what are the mechanisms to make sure that we can actually influence the agreed conclusions. And our conclusion was that some sort of hybrid model probably is best, and that it is about work throughout the year, and a big emphasis on that we need the zero draft much earlier.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Marion Becker, what about you? Has your room been reported on yet? Do you want to say anything? Marion?
I think we had been 11, right?
Yes.
Yes. I can only, we introduced to each other, and there was 2 young women or newcomers, not young, I don't know, but it was nice to hear their perspectives. And one was to have the intergenerational peace would be very important. And the other perspective was more on the one hand to look to employers and women's workers perspective and how to deal with the big companies of the private sector, but also how do we prepare for the backlash. I think this was very important. How do we prepare, or are we prepared with what kind of strategies for the backlash? There was a kind of, we are optimistic, we are less optimistic about backlash back and forth, but also we talked about decision-making, empowerment in economical rights of women, and about the money, so that we should long much more for the power and finances and earlier, so that we open up for young women to get them into positions so that they have a time for prepare their power networks, which would also, together with economical better standard of women, improve the situation of women in general. And on local level, there was another focus that this is very, very important.
That's great. Thank you very much. Leslie, you're back. Do you want to say anything from your room? Leslie Wright?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm typing in the chat.
Oh, all right.
But I think that Marion did a good job of covering everything. And I think that one of the things that came out that was really strong was the need to support younger women to be moving forward. And we need to get more women involved. So the grassroots constituency needs to be further developed. We've developed the NGO CSW in the regions. Now the regions really need to take their work and develop it in the countries, because that's where all the action is. That's where they come from. That's where the government delegates come from. So if we don't have the power there, then we're not going to be able to influence how that happens. So congratulations to the UK, to Germany, to some of the others where they've really made an impact.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I'm afraid we only got 2 minutes left. So I think there's about 3 rooms that didn't have a chance to report back, but maybe you can put stuff in the chat, or you can send it to the email that we gave you earlier on. I think that obviously we need to have a bit longer than an hour. What do you think, everybody? Should we try?
Yes.
Try to have longer than an hour, because
so many new people, Zarin. I think, when you have so many new people, I mean, I've been coming for 21 years, but there are a lot of people who don't. So, you know, you have to bring them along so that everything is clear, and that takes much longer than an hour.
Well, I guess the thing is that it highlights, doesn't it, that CSW is not a 2-week event. Working with the Commission on the Status of Women is something that has to take place throughout the year.
Yeah.
And it's one of the points that was made earlier on, is that what the core group is trying to do is to have monthly meetings, and that we just need to work on those, and we need to use the monthly meetings, and maybe more than monthly meetings, to continue to raise capacity, so that when we get to these 2 weeks of intensive activity, this is when we harvest the work we've done through the year. And that's what we have to look like, that this is not the sowing period, this is the harvesting period. And we need to be much more effective at doing our sowing. Let's look at it like that. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining us today. So please bear in mind that we've put on an extra one on Friday. Friday is our strategy meeting. We've put it in the listserv, the program, and it's really to ask 2 main questions. One is what we want to do about the current core group's election status, because we should be electing a new one this year, but things have changed. So we really need to know from you, do you want to have an election? Do you want the current core group to stay in post, etc.? And then the other thing is really about the mandate for the core group. In the past, it's been quite limited in terms of just organizing the caucus meetings at CSW. But as we've seen and as we've discussed, there seems to be a role to do more as a caucus, to have a full year experience and so on and so on. So do we need to change the mandate slightly? So please come to the meeting on Friday. The link was given in the listserv, and be prepared to participate in the discussions on those 2 key issues. But also it could be a place where we can bring forward other things that have come to you as a result of CSW. And please use the listserv, and please use the email to let us know your thoughts about anything to do with CSW and the core group and the caucus. We also have set up this geographical linkage caucus for tomorrow, and we'll put that out on the listserv, and maybe there will be people from other geographical areas there. So have a great day. Have a great rest of CSW. See you on Friday, we hope. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you, Devon, for organizing. Thank you, everyone. Carry on the fight.
Thank you.
Thank you.